Hey guys, welcome to another edition of Tether Talks. Today we're doing a impromptu Tether Talks. We've been discussing within the app and on Instagram today what true leadership looks like. Just a random topic for the day, I guess. And I thought it would be really cool if I could spend some time today sort of checking in with someone that I consider to be a true leader and a conscious leader and somebody who inspires me to be a better man and makes me proud to be a man and a creator at this point in our world history. So I am very excited that we're going to have somebody join us soon. I wish it could be like more exciting where you could call them and see if they pick up, but he will have to request to join us shortly. I did want to let everybody know that we are also going to be holding our next Tether We Fuck With Feelings community event on Wednesday, November 11th. It will be a digital event again, and all of our members and supporters are welcome to come to that. If you're growing a mustache this month, let us know. If you're doing something else to celebrate mental health and raise awareness, please also let us know, because we want to celebrate that as a community. I see our special guest has hopped on here today, so I'm going to let him request to join. Let's see, there we go. Go live. And we're just connecting here. Hey, Chip.
Hello, Addison.
How you doing?
I'm here in bed. Actually, this is my spirit animals. My Mexican spirit animals in Baja. How you doing?
Good. Are you holding the bottom of the phone? Your microphone sounds a little underwater.
Does it sound underwater? Okay, that's maybe because I've got these in. Let's see if that without
There you
them.
go.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
much better.
there we go.
Mhm.
All right.
Awesome. It's good to see you. And happy belated birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just watched your birthday video, and I thought it was so cool. I'm listening to your Alan Watts poem from Baja.
Yes.
So enlighten us. What is 60 like for Chip Conley?
Man, I know. Old man, huh? Nice thing is I can look out my window and see the ocean right there. 60 is, a time for reflection. Obviously, COVID has been a time for reflection anyways, but you have a landmark birthday,
Mm-hmm.
and it forces you to ask yourself, what do you want the next 10 years to look like? And my 50s were my best decade. I will just tell those watching that the U curve of happiness, which has been studied in social science research, shows that around 45 to 50, to be exact, 47.2, is where you hit your bottom. You hit your bottom in terms of happiness, life satisfaction, and everything gets better from there. And so I found my 50s were my favorite decade. So I would guess that maybe my 60s will be as well.
Awesome. I love that. So I was saying before you hopped on today, we've been kind of focusing as a community over here on just leadership in general. No coincidence. Just just really looking at today what we all sort of get inspired by and what we aspire to when it comes to leadership, especially in the men's mental health community. And I just thought, obviously, I think of you as such a leader, and I look up to you in so many ways. And look to your side, because you really do treat me so well like a peer whenever we do have conversations about, creating impact and what can be done and whatnot. And I love that. And I'm sure it's one of sort of your, I don't know, part of your recipe of leadership itself to treat people the way you do. But I'm just so interested sort of who inspired you, and, because you did so much innovating and so much building that there wasn't, I would assume there wasn't a handbook for you. So I'm kind of wondering what inspired your leadership style and what it means to you.
So, first of all, I believe in karmic capitalism. What goes around comes around. So karma is really about what goes around comes around, and applied to capitalism,
Hmm.
it means that if you treat people well, in the long run, you'll be treated well as well. And so when it comes to leadership, I believe that everybody is a CEO, a chief emotions officer. And what that means is, frankly, the higher you are in an organization when it comes to your job title or your leadership, the more contagious your emotions. And when we realize that our emotions are contagious, it does influence how we show up. And there was a point, for those who don't know me, I spent 24 years founding and running the second largest boutique hotel company in the United States, called Joie de Vivre, based in San Francisco, and all the hotels were in California, 52 of them. And then I've spent the last 8 years helping the founders of Airbnb grow their company. So
Yes, for those of you who don't know, Chip Conley and Airbnb, that's the, synonymous with each other.
well, I joined before the company was very well known or very big, and and have continued to be the in-house mentor to Brian Chesky, the CEO. So what I did both at Airbnb and at Joie de Vivre is I did a little test for all of my direct reports. I asked them for the next month, I don't want you to call yourself a leader or a manager. I don't want you to call any of your direct reports a leader or a manager. Whenever you have to use the word manager or leader for the next month, we will use the word role model or the term role model instead. And let's see what happens. And such a fascinating journey in both cases. When people actually shift their language from manager to leader, from manager or leader to role model, it shifts their behavior.
Right.
Just like when you're a parent and your kids are watching, like, okay, yeah, you maybe change when you realize that they're actually going to emulate or imitate you. It influences your behavior. So long story short is I think that being recognizing that the higher you are in leadership, the more of an emotional thermostat you are. You're not the thermometer, you're the thermostat. You set the climate, and you influence the culture. And so leadership is particularly important because of that.
I love that. That's awesome. So I guess I'm like trying to think, like I'm like overexcited. Like, what do I want to ask you? Well, I guess like I want to know more about your recent, building Modern Elder Academy, and how, we go from the boutique hotels to Airbnb to focusing the way you are right now, and what that really is. I just realized that I'm applicable. I can be a modern elder, and I'm going to be taking taking that opportunity very soon. But for anybody listening, kind of what you're working on right now, because it's incredible down in Baja.
Yeah, when I started my boutique hotel company, Joie de Vivre, they called me the Boy Wonder because I was 26, and then when I joined Airbnb at age 52, they called me the Modern Elder. So I've gone from Boy Wonder to Modern Elder, all in at twice the age of what I was when I started my company, and actually at twice the age of the average person in Airbnb when I joined in early 2013. What I learned at Airbnb was that we live in an era where we're living longer, but power is moving younger, and the world is changing faster. And those three variables, living longer, power moving younger, the world changing faster, has a lot of people in midlife bewildered. And I define midlife, I used to define it as 45 to 65. I now define it as 35 to 75. So there's a lot of people in midlife, and you're almost there, Addison. Almost
Getting
there.
closer by the minute.
Yeah, we've had 750 people go through the Modern Elder Academy, also known as MEA, from 24 countries. The average age has been 54. We've had people as young as 30 and as old as 88. The point of the program really came out of my experience at Airbnb, where I realized we have so few in the way of midlife wisdom schools, places where you can go and repurpose yourself, reimagine yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we have, you know, the word adolescence was coined in 1904, and then we created public junior high schools and high schools to help adolescents in their transitional period from childhood to adulthood.
Right.
But we have very little in the way of helping people in midlife shift from one way of being or one era of their life, one stage of their life to the next. And
Mm-hmm.
midlife is full of transitions, whether it's ultimately for a woman menopause, for a man andropause. Most men don't know that they go through their own version of menopause. Uh, there's, you know, divorce. There's changing a career. There's becoming an empty nester because your kids have moved away. Um, there's death and destruction with your parents. You know, that process. There's being a sandwich generation of taking care of your kids and your parents at the same time.
Right.
But we have so little in the way of schools and tools and rituals and rites of passage for people. And so that's why we created the world's first midlife wisdom school dedicated to long life learning, not lifelong learning, but long life learning. And
Mm.
we've been up and operating for about 3 years now down here in Baja, and we're now looking at new locations in the U.S.
Awesome. And I am very excited to visit when the time is right because it
Yep.
looks absolutely beautiful. And I guess like we find, you know, if you really boil down our community, a lot of what the glue is and what brings everybody together at Tether is, like you're saying, they're going through some sort of transition, some sort of change that they're having trouble navigating around, and they want to build community around that change, and or are like driving that change because they don't have community, and they want a very specific type of community moving forward. So like I wonder, like, I mean, with everything that you've experienced, and I know we have also, you know, similar experiences with losing people to suicide that were very close to us as well, and you know, just sort of in innovating and community building, like I'm just so curious, like for you, like at where you're at right now, when someone says that they're just like kind of at the face on of a big challenge or a big change that they just can't get around, like what is the initial, you know, advice on what that looks like?
So I have two big thoughts here. One is relates to the first piece of it, the idea of a community, to be unfamiliar with emotional insurance. So emotional insurance basically says, you know, when you have a rainy day and your car or your home is at risk, you have the comfort, the safety net of an insurance policy. Well, we don't really have that when it comes to our emotional lives, especially for men. Um, and therefore, we need emotional insurance. And I call this social wellness.
Mm,
So personal wellness is often thought of as starting with the letter I. Wellness is about, you know, how, you know, what you're eating and how you're working out and are you getting enough sleep. It's very, very personalized. And yet in many ways, if you look at blue zones, you look at longevity, um, what really helps a person live a deep, meaningful, and longer life is not their own personal wellness; it's their social wellness. And
mm,
the word illness starts with the letter I, and the word wellness starts with the letters we.
right.
So what I think is interesting about Tether is that Tether for Men is that it's about social wellness and it's about
Right.
emotional insurance. Okay, so that's the framework. Now let's talk about when someone's going through something.
Mm-hmm.
There's a ton of research on this. It's part of what we teach here at MEA. Um, they're basically, it was originally studied in rites of passage in indigenous tribes. And you can think of it, and Joseph Campbell then popularized it in his book, you know, about the hero's journey. George Lucas popularized it with Star Wars because he had studied Joseph Campbell. Long story short is there are three phases in a transition. There's the ending of something, there's the messy middle, when you're liminal and in transition and often feeling somewhat awkward, and then there's the new beginning.
Right.
Adolescence, puberty is that. It's the letting go of being a child. It's being in that middle puberty adolescent period, which is sort of a turbulent period. And then you come out on the other side of it, graduating and having a commencement speech because you're commencing adulthood at age 18. So the idea of a 3-stage journey of going through transition is really helpful, because what it allows people to understand is which phase in the journey am I on. And the things that I see that are classic are people who actually can't let go and end something. They have a really hard time acknowledging that there's something that they're ready to let go. And we at MEA talk about the great midlife edit, and we have a whole experiential workshop component that it relates to how do you let go of the things that are no longer serving you. So that's the first piece. And then there's the messy middle. And during the messy middle, people get scared. They want to go back to what they was comfortable. They don't want to deal with what they're in the midst of. They will use distractions and addictions as a way to just get through that messy middle, but they aren't actually going through transition. They're going through change. So change is circumstantial. When you're going through change, it's a function of circumstances, and it's situational. Transition is psychological.
Right.
And if you're going through the right kind of transition, in that messy middle, in that liminal second phase, you are going through some psychological and maybe even some spiritual changes. And then once you've properly done that, you make it to the third phase, which is the new beginning. So you have an ending, a messy middle, and a beginning. And sometimes people have a hard time with that third phase, the new beginning, because, gosh, it feels you're the neophyte. You are all of a sudden the person who is new and virgin-like in terms of what you're doing, and you don't like that. You like being the one who seems to know it all or is in control. So long story short is, if you can see that those 3 phases, you can learn a lot. I write about this in my book, Wisdom at Work, The Making of a Modern Elder. Bruce Feiler's New York Times bestseller this summer called Life is in the Transitions is all about that. And if you read my Wisdom Well blog, which is a daily blog, I write a lot about transitions in Wisdom Well. And you can go to Wisdom Well at the MEA website, the Modern Elder Academy website, and just do a search for transitions in there, and you'll get there. There's a bunch of posts that I've written that are specific to transitions.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely direct everybody over there in our community as well. It's like, as you were saying that, it's really, it was interesting because when you laid it out like that, it makes so much sense, personally. But then, with a year like we've had this year, you realize that everyone's on their individual hero's journey. So, a group of us,
But
maybe.
I'm sorry, Addison, we have a
Right.
collective one too. There's a collective
Right.
one
And
as well.
that's what I like is kind of interesting right now, especially from the community perspective, is like, not everybody's in the messy middle at the same time, but we're all sort of arriving at different times. And so it's interesting, like, to put it that way and to think about it that way, and sort of how to cultivate an ecosystem that allows people to arrive at the messy middle, on their own time, and that there's room for everybody as, we kind of go through something collectively together like that.
Yeah, and also recognizing that you're not a bad person for going through it. I mean, it's
right.
I think what's hard for a lot of men, and especially men in midlife, is they feel like they did something wrong, like they screwed up the game of life, and in so doing, they feel like a bit like a loser, and then of course, if you're a loser, you don't want to share that with anybody, and the walls come closing in when you aren't tapping into the emotional insurance that you're developing, nor the social wellness that it could be available to you. And and that's when people, make sometimes some bad decisions, in my opinion, when they harm themselves, or they just sort of sit in that messy middle under the darkest, deepest, depressing blanket. And not we all, but many of us have been in that time. And when you're in that time, you're sort of in this stuck place, and something's got to unstick you. Something's got to unstick you. Sometimes just time will do that, but a lot of times it's actually whether it's therapy or whether it's antidepressants or whether it's reading or a workshop, or it's just communicating with your best friend, or whether it's tether or whatever it is, there are a lot of ways for a person to help themselves through that messy middle period, so it doesn't feel like it's going to last the rest of your life.
And it does seem that way. I mean, that I'm just speaking from my own experience, but losing my dad to suicide and it happening from my view quite quickly, but not realizing, that he had probably gotten lost in his messy middle a lot longer than I had perceived it to be, and this idea of emotional insurance and building that up and, being able to do that obviously through a community and who you connect with really in life. I mean, everything that I've been through, connections and, that sort of level of we're all in this together, that collective consciousness that you speak of. I've always felt that. And even as I grieved those many losses in my 20s, and, I constantly had people my age being like, I just couldn't do it. What is it like to, lose your brother, your father, and your good friend in these tragic ways so quickly? And it's funny because from a heightened point of view, I could kind of see that, like you were saying, everybody was kind of grieving. Everybody was in their own 3 phase. Like a lot of us are naturally grieving in our 20s of what we thought it was going to be. You told us if we went to school, then we'd get this job, and and we've been on this wave of transition, over and over and over again. And it's just like these micro grieving processes, and we just don't call it that, but because mine was so heightened, I was able to see that in so many people. Be like, you're grieving, you thought it was going to be this way, and it's not. In some ways I was gifted my grief processes because they were these tangible things that everyone could understand and allow me to grieve around. But the normal person doesn't realize that they're in these micro sort of phases all the time when something doesn't go as expected or something they can't control shows up, or that kind of thing. So that really hits home for me, that like, rather than trying to fix someone being in one of those phases, it's helping them to build out that emotional insurance, like you said, in that community around how very normal that is, and how much it actually connects us more. Gifts to my dad wherever he is, but it's so true. It's just like, it's like he didn't have insurance. Like, as you say that, it just it's like, yeah, like for sure that was not built up.
So some of this, so as you can tell with the language, whether it's emotional insurance or social wellness, the 3 stages, the 3 stages of transition, if you can have a language for it, you can understand it. And we as men, we're not brought up with understanding our emotions. One of the books I've written 5 books, and one of them is called Emotional Equations. It was a New York Times bestseller from 2012. And it was really about how to become more emotionally fluent, to understand like what the hell's going on inside of you. Because I never took an emotions 101 class in any school. So I actually think becoming more emotionally fluent, so you even understand the ingredients of what's going on inside of me. Is that anxiety I'm feeling, or is it remorse? Is it disappointment, or is it regret? And once you understand what it is, and then what are the component parts of those emotions, you're able to figure out what to do with them a little bit better.
Right. So. And that's kind of the whole movement right now that our new initiative, like We Fuck With Feelings, like that's the idea behind it, is because we realized, so many men, and I realized so many times in my own life, that when I was checking in with myself, I was checking in with a thought, with like a limited belief or like a construct. That's not a feeling. That's not something experientially happening. That's like you thinking you're a loser, or you thinking you're a failure. That's not, the actual experience of it. And it's weird, on our last 2 community events, like, these light bulb moments of all the men in our community kind of being like, yeah, I do feel in thoughts. Like I am always, and so in the app, when you go in, we have everyone check in by an actual feeling. So that trigger of like, oh, this is where I'm coming at from. Yeah. This is where I am right now. And that, like you're saying, like that is very odd. Like, and I was brought up by a very strong liberal woman who said I could be whoever I wanted to be in this world, and still I somehow unlearned, you know, certain things from her in a way, from the way society and, you know, masculinity was perceived. And, you know, at home, I never felt like a man does and doesn't do certain things, but, you know, you still pick it up. And somehow along the way, it just seems smarter and safer to present thoughts as feelings than it does, you know, to present feelings as feelings, because they're real and it's your actual experience that you're sharing. But when you do, obviously, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool, Mr. Baha. I am trying to think, like, is there anything you want people to hear today? Is there anything?
No.
What book do we read first? I was looking at it and I was like, I gotta.
Of my books, or
of your books, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, listen. I mean, my last 3 books probably are the 5 or the. You could either read the Maslow book, which is called Peak: How Great Companies Get Their Mojo from Maslow. So for those who really want to understand leadership, that's a great leadership book. Then one after that's Emotional Equations, really helps you understand your emotions better. So it's great for EQ. And then the most recent book, Wisdom at Work: The Making of a Modern Elder, really appropriate for people feeling irrelevant or in midlife in transition. So those are that. You can go to chipconley.com. You can go to the Modern Elder Academy and learn more about us there. We have these sabbatical sessions we're doing right now that are pretty cool. People are loving them. So we're not doing our normal workshops because of COVID, but we're doing the sabbatical sessions, very popular. And that's where you'll find my blog. And if this sounds interesting, you know, just subscribe to the blog. It's free, and you just get a morning email from me that is a little microdose of wisdom. So thank you, Addison, for having me join.
Thank you. Can I ask one more favor before you go?
You're welcome to.
From, you know, if I'm going to spend the next month, you know, like you said, referring to myself as a role model and my managers or bosses, my partners as role models, if you could gift 3 words to me to carry forward from today and whatever happens next as a role model, what would they be?
3 words. It has to be 3 words, okay?
Just single words, yeah.
Single words, okay. Not a phrase. Okay, good. That helps. Authenticity, you know, pretty obvious. Vision, you know, people, I'll just say that people are drawn to a vision. It's a magnet. And authenticity, they're drawn to that, but they tend to be 2 different things. Authenticity, vision, and agility. Because in a time like we're living in right now, you better be agile, nimble, because your business model, your leadership model may have to change.
Awesome.
That's it.
I will take that. Thank you so much, Chip.
All right. Great to see you.
Okay. You too.
All right. See you soon. Bye.
See you soon. Bye.